Teachers say your kid looks great at school, but when you get home, the story is completely different. This is called masking, and here's what to do about it. I have ADHD, and I had a 504 plan, and I remember acting completely different in different environments. It is kind of like having a Coke bottle. If you shake it up all day being at school, once you get back home and you open up the top, it goes everywhere. School is harder for neurodivergent kids. If you're trying to hold everything in that moment, you're not focusing on learning. Any interaction, any social cues, any noise, it all makes it super hard to be able to transition. And some kids handle this differently. For example, when I was a kid, I wanted to distract myself from my reality because I didn't want to face that I was actually really behind in class. And what it usually looks like at home is when they get back home, they are either snappy or agitated. Any simple questions start a meltdown. They simply just have a completely different personality than they usually do at home. While at school, they're usually quiet, reserved. They're the kids that teachers don't really look at very closely because they're pretty quiet. And I was this kid too because I didn't want to stand out and ask the teachers questions because I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to be that kid that needed more help than the other kids. It is especially important to note that this is way more common in girls because they're way more likely to bottle up instead of being able to release it. This matters so much because it could lead to school refusal, burnout, and not just afternoon problems where they're upset. But this is a system problem too because teachers look at the kids that are loud, not the ones that are quiet or reserved. And for this reason, they don't get the support that they need. This is one of the reasons why it took me a while to get the support I needed while I was younger. So here are some home strategies that you should be doing every time your child gets back. You want to first have 30 to 60 minutes where they can decompress. If it's any more than 30 to 60 minutes and they're still in a mood, that means that your school is not giving you the support that is necessary. Here's how you implement it. You want to have their favorite snacks or drinks, whatever they want when they come back home. You want to have a quiet space for them, wherever that is, the couch, their room. Give them any sensory inputs that make them feel better, their favorite blanket, and try to reduce the number of questions that you ask about for their day, their homework, or anything that's going to overstimulate them in that moment. And every kid is different. It could look like a kid jumping on a trampoline, getting exercise, running back and forth. Whatever it is, every kid will have their certain outlet. Some kids enjoy Legos, fidget toys, drawing, whatever brings them into a moment of peace. Just make sure that it is the same most of the time so that their brain knows what to expect once they walk in through the door. The biggest reason for this is their nervous system has to be able to unwind so that it can start doing other things that are more important in that moment when they come back. Now, it is super important to be tracking the pattern. Just see what is going on, how are they acting in the moment, and keep a simple log. And you don't have to put everything in the log. It can just be what you're noticing the last couple of weeks, and it's not something that has to be strict. It just has to be something that you can stick to. You want to track which days are the worst, which days have the longest meltdowns, and anything that is super important to put down so that you can have an actual record of what is going on at home. A simple format that you can use is a date, how long did it last, what started it, and what happened 10 minutes before and after, so that you can understand what happened specifically in that moment to have that reaction. And again, you don't have to do this perfectly. You just need to make sure to have a habit of doing it every now and then, especially when you see concerning behavior. For example, Tuesday at 3:45, he had a meltdown and he hid underneath the bed. During this time, he had a group project that he had to work on and also a social class he went to. It's also really important to notice how long it lasts. 20 to 40 minutes is normal, but if it lasts into the evening, that is something you should be taking note of. And the reason why this works so well is because when you go to your teacher or your school and you say, hey, these last 2 to 3 weeks, I saw that this pattern went down and this specific thing happened, and you can tell that, and that's data that they'll actually use instead of just saying that they seem upset when they get home, which doesn't get you really anywhere. It allows the situation to stop being an opinion and makes it so that the teacher or the pediatrician cannot ignore exactly what's happening because it's not vague anymore. Another great one is to be just talking to your kid and saying that, hey, you can unwind, you can do whatever. There's no pressure on you to be able to do anything in this moment. For older kids, you can even explain masking to them and say, hey, is there any moment in the day that you feel like you're holding yourself back from being yourself, so that they can clearly be able to communicate their feelings in the moment. As a kid, I didn't really understand what was going on. I didn't have those words for masking or not, but if I had a place where I could be able to communicate and have open communication, I would have been way better off. The difference between just checkups and a long emotional checkup is important. It doesn't have to be all the time. It just has to be, hey, how are you feeling in this moment? Now that you've given them the decompression time based on what works for them best, you were logging the patterns, and you've also talked to your kid and explained how their feelings are. At this point, it's important to know what you're going to say to schools if things are getting worse. The better the relationship you have with the teacher, the better, so it's important to keep your tone always collaborative when you're talking to them. you usually can tell if your teacher wants the best for your child or not as well. And at this point, when you're having a conversation with the teachers, you want to ask questions that understand their full experience while they're at school. Ask questions like, how is their energy and mood throughout the day? What happens during less structured time like recess or cafeteria usually? Lastly, how often do they actually advocate for themselves or ask for help? And it's important to do this because the kids that mask the most often are usually the model students. They're quiet, polite, and don't stand up for themselves. Now, if you have an IEP or 504, here are some accommodations that you should ask based on your specific child. Some things you can ask for is for noise canceling headphones or flexible seating. Another thing you can ask for is movement breaks and also access to a place that's quiet for them. This is so important because it reduces their sensory overload so that you'll understand exactly from your conversations with yourself and your log of exactly what needs to be put in place to help them the most. Now we're getting to executive function support. This can also be extended time on tests or homework, or just a reduced work output compared to the other kids, or it can just be teacher check-ins for long time projects. Whatever will help your child the most. This will reduce their cognitive load for any tracking, organizing, or time management throughout the day, which a lot of kids with ADHD or autism deal with, allowing to free up time for actual learning in the classroom. This was especially important for myself when I had a 504 in school, because having that limited amount of time for a test gave me anxiety, so that extended time, if I ever needed it, was really important. Another great one is having regulation support, either if that's a hand signal or scheduled breaks, or that can even just be a safe person that they can go to that will make them feel okay in the moment. It's important to have this so that they have something that can help them regulate before it gets to a breaking point. And again, this is why it's so important to be able to log the pattern and have communication so you know exactly what will make your kid feel better if you are going to be implementing a certain type of support. But here's what not to agree with if the school tries to push this. Anything that has to do with eye contact goals or quiet hands or still body, goals about waiting their turn without context, and any social skills that are focused on masking, not actual connection. They're goals that try to hide the child's behavior, which is the problem from the start. It also gives the schools the wrong thing to measure in the moment because it doesn't actually solve the problem. The goals focus more on how your child acts, not whether they can learn or be more calm in the environment that they're in. If they ever try to push anything like this, make it about trying to find something that will reduce their stress, not reduce their natural behavior. But if after everything like this, things are not getting better, this is the signs that you need to escalate it. You have meltdowns almost every single weeknight. There's always constant physical complaints about stomach aches, headaches, or mental exhaustion. Any talk of self-harm or not wanting to exist or refusing to go to school. Any big behavioral changes like this are completely understandable to actually be able to intervene, because if they are not addressed in time, they will only get worse and worse. So talk to the professionals to be able to get the help that you need once you start seeing these signs. But when it's just changes to the 504 and IEP changes, this is what you should be looking for. Anything that's school refusal or not wanting to go to school, grades dropping no matter what home adjustments that you make. You've implemented the strategies for 4 to 6 weeks and you're still not making any changes and things are not getting better, and teacher reports are still saying everything is fine. This is when you want to request an IEP meeting to be able to make the accommodations that are needed for your child. All you have to say are these current supports aren't working and this is the patterns we're seeing. We want to make these changes instead. All else fails, this is when placement changes might be due. Frequent crisis and a lot of talk about a hate for school and not being happy there. Because for some autistic and ADHD kids, it doesn't matter what consequences, what reward, nothing will fix the environment unless changing the environment itself. That could be homeschooling, that could be an alternate program, that could be a smaller class. Sometimes a different environment is the right move. And in future videos, I'll be going over state programs that are great. What you're seeing at home is real data. They're trying their best to be able to just survive in school. Your child is working incredibly hard, and with the right support, it doesn't have to be that hard for them anymore. So just keep tracking what's going on at home and find what works best for your child with communication and preventive action. This is something that I wish my parents had when I was a child, so I hope that this helped you. More videos are coming to be able to better support your child. Thank you so much for watching.